UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Good evening and welcome to Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. Tonight we look at UEDCL. It's about 18 months since we had the big switch. Was it really a big switch or a big switch off? Because we see less power than we actually desire. The biggest question is also the 2040 vision that we have for the country to get to a 500 billion economy there. Is it possible with the electricity we have right now to be an enabler to get trade and businesses where we desire? But also when we look at some of the things that have been happening in the recent past, we ask ourselves, they have received $74 million. What have they done with it? A lot of purchases have been spoken about by UEDCL, but also we ask ourselves, can we see the end to load shedding or the outages that we're seeing right now? With our generation being at 2,098 megawatts, but also we look at how much of that goes to the last mile in this country. But let's look at some of the areas we'll be looking at today. Some of the things we'll be looking at today is the takeover that happened with this. We ask ourselves, can government maintain to run a business on its own, especially looking at the entities that are under the Ministry of Energy, specifically with electricity? We go further and also look at how much is generated, but also how much is received at the end of the mile there. How much of it are we transmitting? How much of it are we distributing to the people? Ugandans expect to see lower tariffs. Are we seeing that yet? But also, how far deeper should we dig in our pockets, especially for the loans they'll be taking on? We return to the distribution. We look at the long-term government development plans. We also look at the long-term development that we need now that we're 2.7 million people on the grid. Can we get to 82% that the international grid is asking for? We're at 65% as a country. Can we go any further? Can this power get us there? How much more power do we need as a country? But also, after a year of transition from UMEME to UEDCL, is there anything different? Tonight, let's meet the panel that will be making sense of this discussion here. Honorable Opolot Okasai, a politician and a government official. He currently holds the docket of the Minister of State for Energy, but also represents the people of Kumi County in the 12th Parliament. His docket handles power generation, energy infrastructure, key focus on overseeing the national power projects, promoting renewable energy, its investments, but also protecting public energy infrastructure. Professor Waswa Juma Balunywa, a Ugandan economist, philanthropist, and an academia at that. He has had a tour of duty in the academia. He has stepped up into philanthropy, especially founding Balunywa Foundation, Best in Uganda. He has supported community-based endeavors to support livelihood and standards of living through education. He has also not stopped at that. He has gone ahead to be appointed as a SEC member under the National Resistance Movement. Dr. John Kakungulu Walugembe, a business executive, an economist, author, entrepreneur, and a scientist at that. He has been at the helm of ensuring that small, medium-sized enterprises receive the voice they desire. Also a former executive of the Uganda Small Scale Industry Association. Finally, he has also been the head of business development at the Uganda National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Honorable David Bahati is a Ugandan accountant and politician. Currently, he holds the docket of the Minister in charge of Industry in Uganda. The portfolio engages him to look at investment, industry, but also manufacturing manufacturing in the country to achieve Vision 2040. He has had numerous tours of duty, especially in the Ministry of Finance. But most recently, his second reappointment to get into the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, especially in industry. So that's the panel that will be making
Honorable
sense.
Okasa.
And basically it's a mano. They're all men who are here, and we'll be discussing everything about electricity. You can be part of the show. Join us on our YouTube channel. Drop your comment there. Let us know what you think. But also on X, or streaming live on Spaces there. For text or WhatsApp, 0709 60 25 95. Let's get into the conversation here in the studio. And gentlemen, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for coming to discuss such a patent issue. And I will start with the Honorable Minister Okasai. Let's look at where we ended come the 1st of April. There was a buyout that was meant to be handed over to Umeme. Government said it's $118 million. Umeme is saying it's $292 million. How far have we gone with this buyout clause as government?
Thank you for that question. There are two fronts here. There's a government side and then a Umeme side. As you said, there are different figures. Umeme would want to capitalize on the payment from government. And government operates through an established system. What was done was we subjected whatever Umeme was claiming into an audit, which was done by Auditor General. So Auditor General figures informed the government side. And there is a contention. Umeme is claiming for more money. So this is a case which is now before the arbitration in the UK. We are waiting for the results of the arbitration.
Why is there a very big variance between what government has audited and what Umeme is claiming? What causes that contention of difference?
What causes it is Umeme is claiming what they did not actually do. When the Auditor General went to the ground to audit the investment of Umeme over time, it was clear that Umeme did not invest to the extent which was expected into the grid. Mm-hmm. And this actually creates the problem which we experience now. Umeme stopped investing in strengthening the infrastructure. And we are now feeling the impact of the Umeme is not investing in the infrastructure. The blame which is put onto UEDC is because they inherited dilapidated infrastructure when Umeme was operating.
Honorable Minister, when Umeme came on board after UEB, we'll get into the other transmission, distribution, and generation. We'll get into those in a short while. It moved us from a grid of about 30,000 people to now about maybe 1.8 million people. So when you say they didn't invest that much, they say by the end of the concession they had invested about $750 million. Why are you saying they didn't invest as much as they claim?
You actually ask that question to Auditor General, because we took the figures and said, can we have a forensic audit on investment? And even our own regulatory authority was involved in auditing what Umeme had invested in the infrastructure. So it was very clear it is not to the tune which they are claiming now.
Okay, we'll come back to those in a bit. Isaac, let me come to you. You are in the thick of things. What is the state of our electricity infrastructure as a country?
Okay, thank you, Timothy. Currently, I would say we're basically reaping from a failure to invest. Currently, the state in which it is really requires investment. You've been privy to the investment plan we put up. We require for the next 5 years over $950 million to invest in this network. And this is, I just put it as a typical vehicle, that this, when you're distributing electricity, transmitting it, it needs to be serviced. So the 3 years we lost, really, with minimal investment, compromised the state of the network. And that's the back foot we are on. The earlier we actually pumped in as much money we can, the better for us to move forward.
And I'm glad you've mentioned that money, because $950 million is what you put in your 5-year plan as UEDCL.
Yeah.
But you got $74 million. What has that done?
Yes, we got $74 million, of course, through the loans you saw we were signing off. And what we've actually been going through is the procurement process. Unfortunately, the procurement process alone is quite lengthy when you have to turn around. So you've seen, and I've been making a lot of submission for a little bit of some exemptions if you have to turn around this investment, the cash, into the assets. When you look at it, we have so far invested at least $3 million already in the network. You've seen integration lines being built on the new substations in Maya, and it has relieved some pressure on Masaka Road. Previously, we had even started load shedding some of the customers along Masaka Road. But with that investment and so many others, transformer injections, we've been able to relieve. What that means, if we can improve on the turnaround time, converting the cash into assets, then we'll see a lot more improvement in the distribution network.
Let me quote some of the things that, because we had your former ED, Paul Mwesigwa, right where the Honorable David Bahati is seated. And he said, in 90 days, at least we shall have the overall distribution managed. He also went on to say, the primary problem is that the substations will be managed better in 9 months. We shall predict power not to be a problem within a year. We're seeing more outages than power now. So was he lying? Was he telling the truth as the technical person on that end?
Timothy, I think we need to pick this into context. It will not be just for me to be here and tell you you'll never see an outage maybe after 1 year. But we need to understand this outage is due to what? There will definitely be, like what the Greater Kampala has been experiencing recently. These have been planned shutdowns to say, because of the works that have been being carried out by the transmission company, we have to shut off a certain portion of the network to do maintenance. But to the wananchi, who definitely look at it as an outage, I don't have power at home. So there will be planned shutdowns and then unplanned shutdowns. Our focus right now should be on, because we are going to be investing, we will have those scheduled planned shutdowns. They will be happening. Also, on the other side, to say, because of the state we are in, you definitely still have unplanned shutdowns. And one of the things we are now focusing on is, when there is unplanned shutdown, you've lost power, do you actually have the modus to get to know that actually I need to escalate this? We have kept on, one of the things we are emphasizing to our customers, that look at this having electricity in your home not as a privilege but as a right. When power is off, please put up your hand, raise, make some noise, and then we shall respond. Our biggest challenge, I don't know whether people had lost hope, they actually don't complain. The other day I was in one of high-end areas and I asked them, why are you having low voltage? Say, it's general everywhere. Little did we find out that it was just a blown fuse at the transformer, and when it was fixed, the entire stretch gotten normal supply. So one of the critical things we are focusing on for people, can they let us know of those manageable aspects? Where we have unplanned, where we have planned shutdowns, still we'll communicate in advance. But let's not just give up and say, I think UEDCL knows what is happening. And
before I come to Professor Balunywa, I really want you to give us a real picture that an ordinary Ugandan would understand. But this is what your former MD said. 26% of the substations are due refurbishment or replacement, or buying new transformers. 74% of the transformers that we're having had no protection and had not been maintained for a long period of time. We are also promising to purchase transformers locally, and we purchase between 2,000 and 2,500 transformers as they come in locally. What is the real problem? Yeah. Because Umeme was here for 17 years, 20 years. 3 years they didn't do the servicing, as UEDCL said. Do you want to tell us these 3 years have catapulted to making this a a terrible situation, from homesteads to businesses to enterprises to almost giving this government or business at ransom?
Timothy, that's a very good insight. Indeed, ever since we took over the distribution network, we've replaced over 2,000 distribution transformers, 2,000 of them. And we have lost, I would say lost, because these are the ones that faulted, we've lost around 2,252 in the 18 months we're talking about. And when you look at the failure rate, what was it? One, delayed injection, adding more capacity, because as customers, developments come up, people build. So if you delay to actually put an extra transformer, just know even the one you're having, you're most likely going to lose it. So there will be that. Issues to do with maintenance, just like you will not service your vehicle, you do not say you actually serviced me last year. If you don't service it this year and you continue doing mileage on it, the engine will give way. So that's exactly what happens. If the transformers are not protected to make sure if there is an overload, they can trip, it happens. So indeed, it is very, very critical that the investment we are talking about actually materialize. Without investment, we will be really having a nice to have. But in reality, we need to get down to invest in distribution network. It could have been stable 5 years ago. However, right now, we've added, you've seen, it was 1.8 million customers. We are now talking of 2.7 million customers. If you maintain the same status quo, you don't expect a miracle.
Okay. Professor Baltunyo, let me come to you. This whole, I know this is an area both as an economist, but also as a philanthropist that tries to see how the small businesses work. You have been part of that in Uganda. What do you make of our electricity status as a country right now? Because it's been close to 18 months, but we're seeing more outages like we're with Uganda Electricity Board right now.
Yeah, when the government invested into more generation, we were very pleased. We knew that we now have electricity. And right now, government has an intention of a 10-fold increase in the size of the economy. This cannot happen if you do not have sources of power. Now, transformation, any change in the economy depends on what you call productivity. Can we increase the productive capacity of the country? First of all, the actual producing of goods and services. If you don't have the electricity, you will not produce them. Two, is that to be competitive, if I want to produce a product to be exported and I have power outages, what does it mean? One, I may not be able to produce and therefore not sell. Two, because I increase my cost of production by using a generator, I'll be a high-cost producer and I cannot compete in the market. So power outages are causing a productivity challenge in the country, not only in the country but in terms of exports. And that means the economy cannot grow, definitely. So, and when I hear the investment required in it, I get amazed in terms of the amount of money. $950 million, that's a lot of money. Maybe over a 5-year period, yes, but what is the impact of that? So government has to take a very, very rational decision in terms of deciding to invest in electricity, because if a key facilitating factor in terms of change is what you call the enabling environment, the enablers, and electricity is definitely one of them. If I cannot use my computer, if I cannot use my phone, if I cannot use the internet, then I'm out of the world. So this is possibly the most serious problem. I thought mindset was a very serious problem, but now I feel electricity may be the biggest challenge we have in the country.
And Professor, I like what you said there. $950 million
Yes.
in 5 years makes it close to about $85 million per year.
Per year, yes.
When I look at what Umeme did between 2001 and 2008, when the Salim Saleh report came out, it was about $67 million.
Yeah.
It's becoming a little bit expensive, and remember, this is going to trickle down to the last man. Isn't electricity going to become too expensive to get us to the vision we desire as a country, 2040?
It should be cheap because it's hydro. But I believe that UECDL and indeed the ministry is looking at the alternative. What is the cost of going solar? What is the cost of using renewable energies? We should definitely be able to look at this and be able to make an assessment whether that investment is worthwhile. It was because we had the water, we had, the hydro. It's been available. You could, we put the dams in the various places, but is it making sense? If it is not making sense, we definitely have to abandon it. Otherwise, this country cannot grow. The tenfold, the $500 billion economy will not take place unless if the power outages completely stop.
Let me come to Dr. Kakungulu. Dr. Walgembe, what is happening because there are maize mills, they highly depend on power, there are people who are in lumbering and timber, they depend on power, small shops, groceries around us have fridges, people's televisions have gotten out and blown up. What is happening with your area of both the small, medium enterprises, especially with what has been happening in the last 18 months?
Okay, so as a country, as Professor Valunya mentioned, we want to grow our economy to $500 billion in a period of 10 years. But we also want to create jobs. And we have agreed that for us to move there, we have to go through the route of agro-industrialization. Now, for you to agro-industrialize, you need electricity, but not just for the manufacturers, but for the other players along the value chain. You need reliable electricity, you need affordable electricity. As business people, government took certain decisions for some time that ensured that Uganda had a good supply of reliable electricity. Now, the challenge now is more of distribution. Okay, so electricity is actually there, but how do we distribute it and so on and so forth? For small businesses, it's a huge problem. I was speaking to an entrepreneur whose factory, they are doing furniture, it got burnt, because of these constant outages. For people running small shops and supermarkets, you stock things, once electricity goes, some of it is spoiled and so on. So those business losses is also something we need to consider as a country. We can't sustain that for long. If you look at economies that have not managed their electricity sector well, and a good example is South Africa. They've not managed that well, and it has hurt them a great deal. Germany and certain parts of Europe have also struggled. So as a country, I think that thankfully we have power is being generated. We need to ensure that that power is reliable, that power is affordable. We appreciate what our colleagues from UCD are saying around the underinvestment in the infrastructure. But we also see certain inefficiencies, that you had at managerial level and so on. Thankfully, some changes have now been made. But I don't think money on its own is a solution. We can't just say invest more, invest more, invest more. No, there has to be other things that can be done to alleviate this situation. But for small businesses, we are incurring great losses because of intermittent power supply. Yeah, and we also want a vibrant night economy. And for a night economy to operate, you need electricity. So for any economy to grow, you must have electricity. I was speaking to someone today about solar, and they were saying that now solar is the challenge with solar is expense. It's expensive, good solar is expensive, but in terms of functionality, that has improved a great deal. So maybe we need to also look at improving the energy mix and promoting different forms of electricity to ensure that small businesses keep running. So from my own perspective, I would say that you, EDCL, you have a huge task. We understand some of the constraints that you face, but at certain point, business people won't really accept, that we need $85 million, and then people will ask, okay, we may hand it over in April, and the deterioration since April is so huge. So what exactly happened? Did we go with the transformers? Did they go with, it's the disparity is quite huge, you see. So yes, you have certain, we understand, but you need to come up with a solution first. Not just you, but also maybe the Ministry of Finance. And
staying with you, Dr. Olugembe, how are the small businesses counting this cost? How is the cost biting? Because you talked about fridges.
It's biting because many of them, as you know, borrow. You see, you're borrowing at high interest rates, and then you can't really run the business. You can't run a dairy business, for instance, without good supply of electricity. So very many businesses are struggling. I've spoken to very many of them, and it's a big challenge. And unfortunately, they can't even get compensated. So this person went out of business completely because, it just blew up, and that was that. So we need to find a way of solving this problem, because it can hurt the economy big time if we don't resolve it.
Finally, before I get to the Honorable Minister Bahati, there has been a fruit factory in Soroti, there's been a Tiak, government has been involved in business there.
Yes.
Some politicians have joked that we haven't seen a spoon of sugar from a Tiak, neither have we seen the fruits. Can government be able to do business, especially now that it has gotten into this market of electricity?
You see, that's the point. Government can do business, and there are very many examples where government has engaged in business, and government corporations have performed well. Here, we have National Water as an example, a government state-owned, rather a government-owned corporation that has performed fairly well in terms of reliability, in terms of cost. If you look at Ethiopian Airlines and so on. So there are government state-owned enterprises that perform well. However, it has to be managed with a private sector perspective. I was hearing him talk about procurement delays. You see, if you apply the kind of standard of government to an entity like UEDCL, then you constrain it. Because if procurement will take 2 years, for instance, it's not efficient. Businesses don't operate that way. So we need to have a conversation of saying, yes, government has come back into business, but how can we allow these enterprises to operate with a business kind of mindset? Let's set targets. If you don't perform, you leave. It's as simple as that. We have clear KPIs. If you don't hit those targets, you leave. We hire another person, and we pay them well, you see. But if we operate using the standard civil service mechanism, where there's security of tenure and so on, then we may continue seeing some of these problems.
Honorable Bahati, let me come to you. You are in charge of industry. We'll come to the part where you are in planning, in finance there. How are they faring? Because you have different industrial parks, you have been at it and done a tremendous job to ensure that we have manufacturing factories in different regions of the country. How are they faring with the electricity challenges that we're facing now?
Thank you so much. We want to take note that our population growth, the population continues to grow. We are growing at 3% every year, meaning that in Uganda we are adding an extra 1 million, more than 1 million, on our population every single year. The industry base to our GDP is over 20%. Now we contribute more than 20% to GDP. We are growing at a rate of around 9.9% as industry. We are also contributing tremendously to the revenue. Almost a third of our revenue comes from manufacturing. And the momentum for industrialization is moving on. We promised the manufacturers, especially those who are in industrial parks, a unit of 5 cents. And the consumption of electricity is high with manufacturing. For example, out of the 2.1 megawatts that we are producing now, between 1,900 megawatts, 2,100 megawatts. A sector alone like steel consumes close to 500 megawatts. Just one single sector, 500 megawatts. So the demand for electricity is high, and this is when you look at what we have promised them, the 5 cents, you find that the problem is actually there. But as the minister has said, Minister Okasai, government is not just seated. We are looking at the issue of generation to add more power so that people can not only have power for consumption but also power for production, and also the issue of distribution. When you produce this power, it has to be transmitted, it has to be distributed. So the factories demand electricity as we speak. The government committed the 5 cents to the manufacturers, especially industrial parks, and the government is working on that. It's not going to be in the short term because, as you have heard, UDCL is just taken over from Umeme for just 1 year, and they are trying to resolve some of the pending issues that had with Umeme, but also the need for investing in the network. So as government, we seem not to have an option but to look for resources to invest in the network if we are to continue to grow the industry, if we are continue to meet the demand of consumers, people who want electricity in the country. So really the major issue now is the resource which we are working on to ensure that in the next 5 years, maybe there's a great improvement. Comparing to countries that have industrialized, look at South Korea. We are generating 2,000 megawatts, but South Korea is generating 159,000 megawatts. Indonesia, 100,000, 10 times ours, 15 times our own country with South Korea. So when we talk about investing in industry, we mean it, because you cannot industrialize without power. It's one of the costs of doing business. That is not talking about the trade itself, processing for export and doing other things, storage facilities. So yes, there is a challenge there of electricity, but the challenge is being addressed, and the only solution that we have now is to ensure that we get the resources to invest in, which government is doing, and also make sure that there is efficient operation of the UDCL, which is a company that we set up to do. But we are very hopeful. We are very hopeful that when we start getting our oil, the other day Okasai could testify that, and I think the Minister for National Guidance informed the country, and it is already written in the law, that we agreed under the leadership of President Yoweri Museveni that the resources we shall get from oil, the 1.4 billion or something billion that we'll be getting annually, will be dedicated for infrastructure, electricity, roads, and irrigation.
Let me ask you, Honorable Minister, and I'll get to the other part later. You've mentioned just steel is about 500 megawatts by itself.
Yes.
And the selling point that you were using as the Ministry of Trade is 5 cents per kilowatt for industries, or to leverage against people putting their industries in Kenya or Tanzania or Rwanda. That's your leveraging point.
Yes.
But with what we have right now, what does that mean for your produce or your product to the last mile of a Ugandan? Let's say a mattress. What does that mean that the price will look like when someone is buying a mattress from a factory that has had outages of power?
Well, I think we need to understand that this is a temporary situation. And it's in the short run, we are going to have these challenges. But government has a plan, and the minister will let you know. We have a plan of building over 40,000 megawatts over 10 years. So in the short term, I will stabilize the new institution which we have created. which needs resources, and we are giving the resources in a phased manner. As we stabilize it, we shall have some challenges, but we'll have to manage, and we are managing.
Let me come back to the Honorable Okasai. You came from UEB, went to UMEME. Now you have ERA as the regulator. You have generation as UEGCL. You have transmission. You have distribution. You have three businesses that are running within transmission, generation, and distribution. Why was this a government position moving forward?
The reason for that, we have been developing electricity over time. When we had UEB was managing everything in electricity, right from generation all the way to distribution. It meant it was managing the whole value chain of electricity. At the time, Uganda Electricity Company was terminated, there was need to strengthen, break it to different segments to allow for concentration on getting the electricity. So 3 companies were created. Electricity generation was responsible for generation. Transmission was responsible for transmission, the company. And then distribution was on its own to actually get that advantage of focused development in the electricity value chain. So now, those companies needed to be regulated by an independent regulator. That's why ERA was actually set. And the ministry was set actually to put a policy in place. So when you are talking about the 4, the ministry was there guiding on the policy of electricity generation, transmission, and distribution. So this was the genesis of this. It was a transition into what we have now. And at the time of Uganda Electricity Company, we were only generating 60 megawatts in Nalubali. But today, we are at more than 2,000 megawatts. And that is arising from the deliberate investment in the different segments in the electricity value chain.
Let me ask, Honorable Minister, you keep saying that UMEME stopped investing 3 years before it left. Government had told it in 2022 it would leave. What were you supervising if we were facing these problems? Why weren't you supervising them to ensure that they're investing into this based on the concession you had with them?
UMEME wouldn't have delivered it alone. We needed to invest in generation. I told you by the time we migrated from Uganda Electricity Company, we're at 60.
And I get that, Honorable Minister. My question is on supervision. There is a claim from Isaac that since UMEME didn't make 3 years of investment, that's why we're here. So what were you as a Ministry of Energy supervising instead of enforcing the concession for UMEME to continue investing in our power infrastructure?
The ministry was responsible for everything. It is not just UMEME. UMEME was only a segment of it. And to put it into the true perspective, UEDC was also there. And there were also smaller electricity distribution companies like Chegegwa, there's Wenereko. There are quite about seven smaller companies which were in the distribution segment. We have actually been graduating all these various distribution companies, consolidating them when their concessions ended, and putting everything to UEDCL. UEDCL is now responsible for the distribution of electricity in the whole country. So this is not just looking at UMEME. UMEME actually took the most lucrative part of electricity distribution. They were just in developed urban areas, while the rural areas were actually denied the concentration that Umeme was having. It was UEDCL, which was in rural areas. It was Chegegwa Electricity Distribution Company for central Uganda. We had Wenereko in Western Nile. We had Kilembe in southwestern Uganda. So now that did not give us a focus to actually make sure that our distribution was efficient. So there was a lot of scattered interventions in the distribution segment of the electricity value chain.
Let me come to the word you've used, efficient. Generation, which is UEGCL, is the single generator there. Transmission is the one getting the bulk of the electricity. Then we come to UEDCL that is doing the distribution. How sure are we that these are working at efficiency, that we're getting optimum generation from Karuma, for example, we're getting optimum transmission and finally distribution of the same megawatts to the last mile?
This is a responsibility of ERA. The regulator actually oversees all of them. They look at the generation segment and make sure that they are actually generating electricity efficiently. And then they are also overseeing the transmission. And they are also responsible now for looking at the distribution. So that's the reason we created ERA as an overseer of the various links of the value chain to make sure that everything is running efficiently. I don't have any doubt that the generation segment is actually properly managed. This thinking comes from where we have been from 1986 to where we are now in 2026. And then the transmission segment has also been expanding over time. All the major parts of Uganda have been covered by the transmission lines. The last one which we actually delivered transmission is actually his area. It was southwestern Uganda, Kabale. West Nile, which had not actually seen a grid electricity, was also connected to the grid. Karamoja was connected to the grid through a transmission line. The other parts of the country, all of them have got now transmission lines ranging from 132 kVAs to 400. For example, when you now look at the line from Karuma to Uluyo, is actually 400 kVA. The line from Karuma, no, not Karuma, which one? Pardon? Isimba to Kampala is also a 400 kVA line. So we are delivering electricity by strengthening the transmission lines to deliver adequate and stable electricity to the various parts of the country to meet the industrial demand which he's talking about.
Finally, Honorable Minister, there's a very big difference between installed capacity, which is 2,098 megawatts, to farm capacity, then delivered capacity, which delivered capacity is about 1,550 megawatts. Why is there such a huge difference between installed capacity and delivered capacity?
The difference arises from installed capacity is what is actually in the dam. And you cannot have all that power delivered at once. For example, Karuma has got 6 generation units, but you cannot have all those 6 units running throughout the generation time. You'll find only 3 generation units are working at any one time. And there is also breakages, maintenance. So the installed capacity cannot be the same as the capacity which is delivered at the end of the value chain. There are also losses as we move from generation to transmission. So there is a variance now in the electricity which is delivered at the end of the value chain.
Thank you. Let me come to Isaac here. Isaac, what is your response time to a claim or a complaint?
Thank you, Timothy. Maybe just to qualify that, when you're looking at what we call technical complaints, our response time is 12 hours. We have to make sure within 12 hours that has been resolved for. If it's a billing complaint, we're looking at maximum within 24 hours. Say you haven't received a token, wrong billing, those are now the non-technical. 24 hours.
So you have call centers. Are the call centers knowledgeable about your services to the population?
Absolutely, because we have a dedicated team there that is basically looking at responding to customers. And that's why all the time we keep telling customers, please report. They might, I think where you're coming from, Timothy, could be, why can't they give you the final solution? These are more of receptionists who receive these calls in, and then we dispatch. We have a dedicated, what we call a work management center. Now this is for the technical people who dispatch all these works to the teams in the field. And they are available 24/7, even right now.
Fortunately, we're on TV, so let me make this assertion here.
Yes.
That is not a true fact. First of all, your call centers have no knowledge of what they're doing. Because I personally had a transformer blow, and it took 2 weeks for it to be repaired, actually replaced. It was me telling them this is the capacity that we have around our area. So really, do the people that pick up those calls understand the plight of the person who is calling with this complaint?
Okay, I think I precisely made it. A call center is a reception center. But they are technical people in the background. If really you're going to engage a contact center person to say installed capacity is 200, the demand is 250, they might not appreciate the technical stuff. They receive this, and behind there is a work management center, which is now not front-facing. These are the people who are technical enough, and now they basically process. These are the people who will dispatch technical people to the field. These are the people who will now understand the feedback from a technical person. That actually why this transformer failed was due to lightning. Why? Because when they measured the insulation, it was actually below 5 ohms. That, unfortunately, you don't get from the front desk person. But they will receive your complaint and route it to the respective technical people.
I'll close that, but just to give you information is that you will call and they will have no feedback on what is happening, even after 4 days. They have no knowledge of what's happening, but let's leave that and pick up something.
Yes.
The growth of demand of electricity is between 18 and 27%. Every 200 connections need 100 kVA of a transformer. Demand is outrunning your infrastructure.
Right.
Are you the right people to take us to Vision 2040, to the $500 billion economy that we're looking for as an enabler?
Actually, I would say government is in the right position to take us there. UEDCL is owned by the 2 ministers, Minister of Energy and Minister of Finance. So government...
That's very well put, Professor.
Yes.
The government is working through you.
Exactly. So, and that's it's implied actually.
Actually, your mother ministry owns about 60%.
60%, the Minister of Finance 40%. Why I said actually the government, that we actually need a lot of support as the agency to make sure that is realized. Why? I'll just share with you, just in a greater Kampala metropolitan area, this is an area that contributes close to 70% of the total demand. What are we looking out for? That almost 80% of all the substations across Greater Kampala Metro are maxed out. That's why we are working up in Majije on Gayaza Road. We are proposing a substation there. We are proposing a substation in Kawanda on Bombo Road. A substation in Nantabulirwa on Jinja Road, that's around Mukono. We are proposing in Entebbe. Entebbe people have been having outages this side, but it's more of on capacity. We are saying, yes, we have gotten a transmission substation there. Can we have power evacuated to where the loads are? That's actually what distribution does. So we have several projects that all what we need is actually investment. Mitiana Road, the entire Mitiana Road, Budo Masaka Road, there is a road that is under construction, Nakaoka. All these have actually been lined up for improvement, upgrading. Why? Because that is where the growth is. You ask me, we are ready. If we are ready, we are the right persons. We are more than ready. We have the right skill set. We have the right people. We know, because we've been in this sector more than.
But you seem to put out hope on what you're hoping, that Entebbe will get a substation, Gaza, but we'll look at that later. Let me come to Professor Walnyua. Professor, even something that is dear to your heart, like education, is suffering because of this. When I look back in 2009, General Saleh wrote a report about Umeme and talked about it being a black hole swallowing money. Isn't UDCL just swallowing money now moving forward? Because they have spent about $134 million in purchasing transformers. Yes. 170,000 transformers that need work. Are they the people to get us there?
Yeah, well, when we had UAB, we had one organ doing the generation, the distribution, the regulation. The breakdown of UAB should have been, in my view, the regulator and the service provider. Now, electricity is not a product you're going to find on the market, in the shelf. It is a very unique product, like water. And what we need to do is simply make that company more efficient in what it does. This issue of ownership and whatnot is not important. You cannot have many companies distributing electricity in this country, especially in a small country like Uganda. To me, UCDL must become more efficient at what it does by doing those things in a much better manner, in a much more efficient manner. They talked about response rate. In Uganda, where we have a leadership academy, we have students studying and they need to use their computers maybe for 2-3 hours in the evening, and they can't. So they tend to stay longer because now they must find time to do the work they should have done when the electricity was off. Now, this is for a small organization. Now, what happens with the bigger ones, which are producing for local consumption, mass consumption, producing for export? Well, UCDL is the right organ as set up by government. Even if you set up another organization to compete with it, you may not get, you may have mixed results. Let me take the case of MTN and Airtel and UTL. If UTL had been able to survive in the market efficiently, maybe we would not be saying, well, MTN is externalizing money. What Umeme exactly was doing. So we need this money to be into this country, but we need this company to be much more efficient. And I believe there are ways of being able to do that.
Professor, there is also the digital economy, and you mentioned it. Young people that are trying to trade on their phones, the internet is available, using their tablets or laptops. How has this become a hindrance to especially the growth of that? Because there is trade happening in there.
Yeah, well, successful adoption of technology depends on enablers. And one of the key enablers is electricity. I remember during the COVID, when we had to increase the usage of online teaching, the students would tell you, well, I have a phone, yes, but I don't have electricity to charge it. I can only charge the phone in the school. Now, what did that mean? it meant the student must come to the school. So this is extremely serious for the tenfold increase in the size of the economy, that if electricity is not available, it's a major, major hindrance to the growth of the economy, which is going to depend largely on adoption of modern technologies in agriculture, in production, in banking. I mean, one time I went to a bank and they said, you don't have internet. So why don't you have internet? The electricity went off, you know. Now a whole commercial bank in the public domain had a challenge because of electricity. So this is a priority for this country.
Thank you. Dr. Wolgimbe, let me come to you. We've seen the Honorable Balam and the Honorable Namere running around this country over corruption. We saw the Honorable Biamkama talking about the Busega and PG Express. 6 engineers interdicted. Today we had him complaining about the Nakauka Road, how some engineers have bought land and buildings and are failing the road to happen. Can UDCL be insulated against corruption, and how?
Well, because of the amount of money that they're handling, it's very difficult to imagine that they would be insulated completely from corruption. However, you must have mechanisms to check it and to ensure that it does not affect service delivery. As I've mentioned, this company must operate on private sector principles, and the managers must be held to account. In terms of response time, this should be one of the key performance metrics. You see, if I call, you must respond. I mean, even for us in private companies, you know, even when you call at night, there will be a response. So I think the managers need to be more serious. I was actually impressed by his knowledge of the different substations and so on. But apart from that, we need now, and good enough is the head of commercial, we want him to go in there and make sure that this thing runs like a proper business. We want you, but in return, government needs to create maybe a nice bonus and say, if sales increase, revenue and so on, they give you certain performance. If you hit them, you get the bonus, as simple as that. So I think that my fear, though, when you talked about issues of procurement, I know the public procurement system, it's meant to ensure that certain things don't happen. But as a result, the government procures expensively and inefficiently. And I know that reforms are being made through e-procurement and so on. But for a company like yours, my own view is that you should be given more leeway and flexibility so that you're able to operate with a more private sector orientation. And I would request you to benchmark, look at what National Water has done over the years in terms of targets, in terms of management autonomy. I mean, all these things can help you to do it right, because you have another entity that has been able to survive in the same context. So you can't really say, oh, we are not performing because you're a government entity. No, you can still work and offer good service to customers, make them happy, while at the same time fulfilling your obligations to government. So for me, I would say, yes, investment is one thing, but you know, sometimes money is not always the solution. It's part of the solution, but it's not the complete solution. See, sometimes for us who look at business people, there are businesses that have become a leaking basket. You know, you invest because of certain gaps within. So investment, yes, but how do you ensure that your EDCL does not become a leaking bucket that does not bring returns to the taxpayer? So for me, you can also make investment milestone based. So UEDCL has also to meet certain benchmarks in order to attract financing from government.
Finally, the Honorable Minister Bahati, and I'm glad you mentioned the different countries that have over 100,000 megawatts of power there. I know both as having been in the Ministry of Industry but also in the Ministry of Finance, what is our electricity need as a country to get us to Vision 2040? What would that look like? What is the capacity that would be able to nullify all these concerns?
Before I go to that
I wanted to suggest to Isaac, because the moderator said himself he called your call center, and your call center took for
2 weeks.
2 weeks to respond. So that's the feedback that we must sort out. So take that one serious so that we sort it out. And I think through the minister, the acting MD, we have great faith in her. She's a very experienced engineer. She has worked with Umeme before. She has a straight record. So I think that with the new ED, we'll be able to see some reforms. But we understand that the public needs these reforms very fast. So we need to move very fast so that we improve the efficiency of the institution. So this feedback must be taken, and you must handle it. So somebody should not wait for 2 weeks to address their complaint. I thought that since he raised it publicly, you should make the commitment publicly before we finish the
Let's allow the minister finish his thought.
Yeah, but in terms of the requirements for our electricity as industry, is very high. As I told you, just simple sector like steel would take almost like 500 megawatts, and that is even before we put up the processing, those major ones that are going to be processing iron ore. If you take about other factories that we are talking about, which are coming, so we think that in the next 10 years will require close to 6,000 or 10,000 megawatts. But the minister here has a plan, and his plan is to deliver to us more than 50,000 in the next 10 years. So we really have a good plan, but this plan must be resourced, must be financed, and this plan must be implemented with efficiency. Yeah. And some of the things that are standing in the way are issues of procurement, issues of corruption, and these are the things that are going to be tackled in this Chisanja of no more sleeping. So we are, in my opinion, we need to also understand that where we are coming from, we are making good progress. I will let you know that under the leadership of His Excellency the President, close to 20 years ago, 15 years ago, electricity to industries was at around 15 or 12 cents. But now we have reduced it tremendously. At peak time, some factories get 5 cents, 5.7 cents. So there's a lot of good progress that we are making. But again, we are not also sleeping. We are making sure that we produce more, because more will be needed. As the population grows, you need more power for consumption. As the industry base grows, which is growing, we need more power for production. So in the next 5 years, we'll need close to 5,000 at the rate at which the industries are growing. Remember, in 1986, we only had 81 manufacturing units. Now we are talking about 10,000 manufacturing units. And if we focus on this agro-processing, mineral beneficiation, the demand for power in the next 5 years is going to be very high. So we must really work hard, and we are working hard to ensure that we deliver this power so that our manufacturers enjoy, as the professor said, a competitive rate of electricity.
I want to allow Isaac.
By the way, I must say that Professor Barunya was my teacher at the university. He taught me for 3 years at during Bachelor of Commerce course. So yes, I'm glad to see that we are debating together on these issues.
Isaac, the minister put it to you, so let me allow you to respond to it.
Timothy, I do take the feedback, but just like I'd earlier mentioned, that indeed we appreciate that 1 or 2 times our gadgets will fail. For example, our projection for the first 1 year was like, out of the 20, by the way, also to put the record right, we have a total of 26,700 transformers, not 170,000. We haven't yet reached there. That's our wish, to reach 170, but there are only 26,700. Out of those, we had projected that we'll lose, due to age, due to any other factors, lightening, around 1,500 transformers in here. Unfortunately, because of so many of the other factors, not protected, overload, I've told you we lost a total of 2,252 in the last 18 months. What that means, it left us at a back foot to say, yes, we anticipated that maybe we'll be replacing 1,500. We've lost 2,200, and we've been able to replace 2,000. Okay. So I would say there is a gap of around 200 that are not yet fixed. But after reviewing all our procurement processes, we've been able to procure most of these. Okay. And any of those outstanding 200, we have had a plan to make sure that within the next 2 weeks, all the 200 are actually replaced.
Let me read some feedback that has come through. Good evening, Timothy. Thank you for the show. My name is Martin from Kumi. Thank you for the program. I haven't achieved rural-urban electrification. This is because my house was wired 4 years ago, but nothing has happened. I have followed up for 4 years and nothing has happened. And this is more in the area where Minister Okasai comes from. Okay. Thank you, Timothy, for the show. Much desire to have a discussion on power and well. A case in Uganda, there is a tendency of lines being switched off. For example, neighbors on the opposite side may have power while the others on the other side are in darkness. What causes this? This is Samuel in Uganda. Okay, I think all these are for Isaac. Thank you for the program. The structure to implement government works, and that is true. This is Romeo from Ntungamo. But I haven't seen the electricity and the bills are becoming higher. Okay, thank you. Another one comes in. The call centers, the official lines they have are either off. Sometimes you cannot receive positive results. After assignments of reference numbers, numerous reference numbers, promising you that they'll get back to you, they never get back to you. How does this end? The customer will be forced to call someone privately and pay them to give them a service. Unfortunately, probably intentionally. This is poorly done, and within a few days, the problem recurs. So it seems like the money is making the scheme. This is Charles in Boyagere. Thank you, Charles. Good evening, I'm Joshua from Boyagere. The man is talking about a report and reported cases of a rotten pole that has been with us for 1 month. I was given a reference number. Up to now, no one has come on ground. So let him talk to us with things that we know. Okay. At what point did rural electrification end? Where did it cover? Because many areas within Teso lack electricity. Okay, finally, this is someone from Tororo. He says, what the areas have is one transformer has less than 20 connections. Or more than 20 connections, so that it causes an issue and there is no response that happens there. This is Franklin from Busheng. He says, thank you for the show. Uganda, to achieve a stable and reliable power supply, the supporting industry development, we must prioritize the fight against corruption in the energy sector. Leakage of funds, poor procurement, non-payment of undermining generation, transmission, maintenance, clean governance with prerequisites for energy security. Okay. And another one comes in from Ginger. He says the skyrocketing charges of units of UEDCL compared to Umeme are skyrocketing. Okay, let's take a quick break. When we come back from this break, we'll be speaking solutions and forecasting what the future should look like.
MTN voice bundle. Load. Hey. Hello, Mama. Hey, it is me, your son, Opio. Hey, now, Mama, listen to me. MTN has the offer. Yes, it has the offer. You load from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Now they have free MTN to MTN minutes. And those minutes are there all day. So you load, you'll thank me later. Hey, mama.
Load an MTN voice bundle between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. and get 3 free MTN to MTN minutes valid all day. Dial *100 *21 hash and get your free minutes bully daily. Free your fire with free minutes from MTN. Together, our connection is unstoppable. MTN.
The Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, MEMD, warns the public that fraudsters using fake social media accounts to solicit money while falsely claiming they can secure licenses, appointments with the Honourable Minister, or influence ministry decisions. Please note, you do not pay to meet the Honourable Minister or any Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development officials. Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development has not authorised anyone to collect money on its behalf. All Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development services are free of charge, except for statutory fees provided for by the law. Verify any communication by contacting info@energy.go.ug. Report any suspected fraud to the Ministry and the relevant law enforcement.
We don't need anyone's permission to move forward. We never have. What we need is the power to do it our way. To move our people, our goods, our ideas across cities that breathe with our energy. Spiro is not your typical EV company. It's the power grid for African ambition. A network that connects Nairobi to Kigali, Lagos to Lome, Dar to Kampala. Not with cables and wires, but with clean, quiet, relentless movement. Every swap keeps the city running. Every ride links one life to another. We're copying no one else's future. It's we who powers the cities we live in. It's we who shapes the world they'll become. This is Africa, powered by us.
Welcome back from that quick commercial break here on Behind the Headlines as we get to the last leg of the show. In the studio, I'm joined by Mano and we're discussing electricity in this country, especially looking at the switch that happened from Umeme to UEDCL. We're looking at their performance in the 18 months that they have been in business. What does that mean for us? Let me read some feedback before I get back to the gentleman in the studio. Good evening, Timothy. Thank you. This is a nice program. Thank you for also talking about Umeme. Umeme's services were rendered to us, but we had no worries. And they failed a few times. But the spread of UEDCL now is becoming a challenge. Like now in Mpiji, in Gomba, Butambala, on the main road, sincerely the whole village, we have no power. Kindly, can we be stretched and serviced? This is Jane Francis, okay? Someone else says, I would like to refute your guest submission that they are swift in responding to cases reported to them. They speak rightly on what they know, but in practice, it is a different thing. They hardly respond to the consumers' expectations. Let me share the video of what I posted. Okay, I'll look at that video later. Let's take one more so that we can get to the discussion. I am Moses Wawire from Kibuku district. In fact, gambling is too much with electricity. In fact, government must prioritize electricity if we are to achieve Millennium Goals. I thank you. Thank you very much. Keep the messages coming. We'll jump into them at the top of the hour. Isaac, it's only fit that I come to you. I know you must respond to some of these queries that have been made here, but a lot of them are coming from the response, as the Honorable Minister Bahati said.
Yeah.
People feel like, and I think you also mentioned it when you were talking about Iganga.
Yes.
When you mentioned that you go to a affluent area and you ask people, why don't you have power? They said, this is the norm.
Yeah.
So Ugandans seem to have become, made it the new normal because services are not being provided.
Yeah.
Please respond to
it. Thank you, Timothy. And why we are here, really, and why we cannot shy away. we cannot say we are at 100%. Honorable Minister mentioned it, that there are basically a lot of organizational reorganization changes that happened. And the team that is there is actually not new in the energy sector. We've done this before. So one, we call upon your support. We call upon for your patience. And we still want to call upon you to make the noise where you feel you're not satisfied. One of the things we can assure you is we have the right skill set to sort out most of these issues. Just picking up some of the issues. To be very honest, my colleague here, Dr. John, has kept on insisting on what are the measures. Can we run this entity as a commercially viable? We are, the Electricity Regulatory Authority has actually set targets, very stringent of them, that some of them were even putting up our hands and say, in year one, we cannot achieve energy losses of 13.6. Why? Because currently we are at 18.5. And the work, the investment that is needed to reduce both commercial and technical losses, we actually don't have the money to say it's, we are talking about $10 to $15 million to reduce technical losses by 1 percentage point. So one of the things is we have very clear targets. Last year, we had a target of 220,000 connections for the 9 months. We managed to do 189, call it 190,000 connections. That would be that is around 84%. We had a few challenges. We are learning here and there, a few things, but at least there's something we can say we are actually being measured on and being held accountable. That goes on. We've been able to collect 100% of all the revenue that has actually been built. We still have challenges on supply reliability. We are supposed actually to be, our target is supposed to be every single customer to, as a bare minimum, to go off not more than 60 hours in a year. Right now, we're doing 90 hours. 90 hours or in a year. So that, I don't want to go into the technical words of Saifi, Kaidi, but we track how long are these outages and how frequent. So we look at the frequency of the outages, we look at the duration of these outages, and these we measure them up to the technician down. That is one of the issues. Sorry. That is one of the issues why we focus on people reporting that under all circumstances, can you please report? That helps us to track whichever field person is down there. Other than calling them, other than calling Kamifus, let's report and then we track performance. About outages, a lot is still outstanding. And one thing we can commit on is we know the problems. We know what needs to be done, and we are committing, we'll get there.
Okay.
One thing, the other one is about, they raise about new connections. As I've told you, we've been able to connect up to from 1st of April, as of July, we've been able to connect 300,000 customers on the grid. We have a pipeline of close to 500,000 customers that we have. These have expressed interest. Almost half of them are ready to be connected. And as I earlier shared about the challenges in logistics, we've been able to get a lot of clearances, no objections, that we have been able to secure meters from our international suppliers, and now we are now starting. Actually, the whole of this week, the whole of last week, we've been connecting first in, first out, and making sure that entire backlog of 500,000 is cleared in the next 6 months. We still have a number of issues on supply reliability, but we'll get there. Thank you.
Is it true that you're also procuring your transformers locally?
Yes.
And your demand is exceeding supply?
Yes. Actually, in the last 3 months, we've had to onboard other suppliers, or local manufacturers of transformers, but we are also proposing to go to the Comesa region, because these are very bulky equipment that maybe we cannot airlift, say from China or Turkey, where they are basically would be picking them from. But we go into Comesa. TANESCO is there. They are producing very good transformers. We have quite a number that we can actually benefit from, other than just constraining ourselves to the local manufacturers.
Let me come to Dr. Olgembe. Doctor, especially you said money is not the only solution.
It can't be, yes.
What is the other solution that can be employed or what other solutions can be employed by UEDCL or the Ministry of Energy to ensure that the Ugandan at the last mile is receiving adequate power?
Okay, first of all, based on the comments that we received, you see that most Ugandans, it's not so much the technical issues and so on, it's how they are responded to, the speed of response, the how and so on. Sometimes that deceit will get back to you and then you don't get back to them. So my view is that UEDCL, yes, you are tackling the technical issues, the transformers, all that, but you start by, improving efficiency in those things. See, don't put someone, you're saying just a receptionist. No, this is a technical kind of job. Get someone with a certain basic knowledge so that they can address, because some of the issues that come don't need a lot of sophistication. So let's get someone with a certain knowledge to be able to respond to issues and to follow through. See, so for me, I look at this mainly as a management issue that can be resolved in terms of how you engage with the end user, how fast you respond to them. Sometimes someone may not help you, but the fact that they have responded to you in a timely manner and they have told you, unfortunately, we are not able to help you because of ABC reason. It's funny, people can be patient. See, if you explain to me that, sorry, we've run out of meters, please give us 6 months, I'll wait. See, because I also had an experience, someone came, took the meter, then now came again and said, now you are doing direct. You see, now. No, I'm direct because we're inefficient. You see, you took it for repair. So, how do we improve that? For starters, for me, that would be one. Two, how do we ensure that we lobby as UEDCL to be excused from government? In private sector, I call it bureaucracy, red tape. And a business doesn't want red tape. That's why we've been pushing for government to reduce regulations, licenses, and so on. So if you want to run an efficient enterprise, try to ensure that you gain those exemptions. Not to encourage corruption, because there's also a risk that those exemptions can be used by certain actors to benefit themselves. But you must build systems. So by the time you ask for an exemption, you say, we shall hold ourselves to account this way, you see, and then government will say, fine, you go and do what you are required to do. So for me, I think that, yes, let's look at the external issues, which is financing, which is where we are sourcing transformers from and so on, but let's also look within to make those necessary changes that can improve how you engage with your end user.
Dr. Olgembe, the conversation also that comes in this whole conversation of UEDCL is privatization versus nationalization. What areas should government be looking at to bring back to itself to run for the benefit of the ordinary Ugandan? Is this one of them?
No, I think we've now accepted, because also the kind of wholesale privatization that we engaged in the 90s, to a large extent was a mistake. If you look at some of the entities that we let go of, we are now paying the price. So government has come into the sector, but government is coming in as an inexperienced operator. This is clear. It's like when you get a new job, you need time to learn. So I think government now, through ECDF, is trying to learn. We need to give them time, and we need to advise so that they succeed, because if ECDF succeeds, then as Uganda we are happy. On the contrary, if you get someone from without, they just do a few things and take out all the money. Long term, I don't think it's the right approach. So the fact that government came in, established UG, was the right decision, just like they did with UNOC, just like they are doing in other areas. But we must ensure that there is efficiency, there's good governance, there are clear targets, and that they run using private sector principles.
Thank you. Honorable Minister Okasai, let me come to you. You said 52,000 megawatts in 10 years. That's 5,200 megawatts per year. How is that going to happen?
I didn't say that.
Okay.
I said by
the Honorable Bahati said it.
I would wish to correct that.
Okay.
52,000 megawatts by 2040. It means then every 5 years we're going to have an increment until we hit 52,000 megawatts. Even if we got that 52 megawatts today, we shall not consume it. So we have got to generate to meet the demand. And the demand which we are talking about is not only looking internal. We also want to turn electricity into a tradable item, supplying the region. And we're working with the East African Power Pool to enable this to happen. Uganda is central, and Uganda is going to be a center which will be distributing electricity to all the 13 Eastern African countries that are within the power pool. So with 52 looks big, but by 2040, our consumption should be close to about 20,000 megawatts. In case we manage to get the 52, then any excess can be traded. And should there be a shortfall of the electricity that we demand, if it is growing, the demand is growing faster than we can, we should be able to import electricity from other East African countries to supplement whatever we have as a country. So we have measures to make sure that we provide adequate electricity to the development needs of our country. The tenfold program, the tenfold intention of the growing the economy, we have strategies to make sure that we have adequate, either through internal generation or import from the neighboring countries. But when we said 52,000 megawatts, we're actually thinking of a robust energy mix. Currently, we are focusing on hydro. We are not focusing on all the potential sources of energy in our country. Our country, we can get geothermal electricity from the Western Rift Valley. So that potential must be developed. We have the wind. We have got to develop the wind potential. We have the sun, which rises every day, 12 hours every day throughout the year. We can turn that into generation of electricity. And most importantly, we want to dive into nuclear energy generation. Out of the 52,000 megawatts, 24,000 megawatts are going to come out of nuclear. Hydro will be close to 10, and then we use even cogeneration like it is happening in Kakira and Lugasi, where they are using bagasse for generation of electricity. We also have the peat, especially in southwestern Uganda, in Kabale. In the swamps of Kabale, we actually intend to use that one also for generation of electricity. Using that type of approach, we are quite sure if we invested in the energy generation, we shall be able to meet the demands of the tenfold growth of the economy.
And I'm glad you've said that. I think I appreciate the mix of energy there. But Honorable Minister, what will that cost a Ugandan in terms of investment? How much is going to be borrowed? And also it will translate to the last mile there, because they'll have to find a way of paying this money. How is investment looking like? At what cost?
We have actually reflected on the investment. The investment, if this is to happen, we need close to 17 billion US dollars. And this is not going to be a one-off. It is going to be continuous and it could be gradual. And we have been debating in cabinet, how do we make this happen? Electricity is an enabler, as he said, for the whole of the economy of this country. And if you looked at what are the hanging fruits. Where are we likely to get the money? We have actually been debating in cabinet. Yes, the first oil, which is also in my ministry, is expected to come out within this year. So where is this money going to be invested? Honorable Barty talked about it. It's going to be in 3 key areas. One is transport infrastructure, especially the railway. The second one is electricity. Can we put some more money, reduce borrowing, and put our own money to generation of electricity? And the third one is irrigation of our country. So there is mobilization of resources, and it is a priority of government to have the enabler to be invested in to now spur the economy to a tenfold growth.
Thank you. Professor Balunywa, there is a lot of public skepticism, especially when something involves government. How can both government and UEDCL really give public confidence that they can be able to deliver reduction in power outages, reduction in power supply shortages there? How can that happen?
Yeah, I was surprised when my colleague said that Umeme was experienced and now there's no experience. I believe 99% of the people running UCDL were in Umeme. So the experience is there. That's one. Two, the challenge with public enterprises world over, the inefficiency comes out of A, political interference, B, being unable to run like commercial organizations, being efficient. So I believe that the government of Uganda has taken a decision to maintain certain public enterprises, National Water, UCDL, Uganda Airlines, and I believe some more coming. So it should be our requirement to ensure that these organizations are run like commercial entities. So the ordinary Ugandan needs availability of electricity because it's not available, and needs to have a product that is reasonably costed. You know, you normally so low cost, but I notice if I paid 50,000 shillings for electricity, they give me 52 units. If I paid 150,000, they give me 200 units. I don't know how that one works, but I believe they are trying to encourage you to pay more, so they receive more money. But I think there is need to make our public enterprises more efficient, and it is not rocket science, you know, how to make these enterprises efficient. It is not rocket science. They have KPIs, there is need for training in leadership and management, need for training in efficiency, productivity issues, so that the organization can be efficient. I mean, we are not discovering electricity here. We have seen efficient, Europe runs very efficient public enterprises. While they tell us to privatize, they are running these enterprises there. So to me, these organizations can do it. We just have, as a public, we should demand more accountability from these institutions, more efficiency, better service delivery, and they should be able to do it. I think they should be able to do it.
With all the challenges they have had, even getting to where they are, money that has to be borrowed, is there a concern both as an economist, because there is the cost of doing production, the cost of business here. When you hear 52,000 megawatts as a target by 2040, when you hear that they want to borrow $950 million in the next 5 years, what does that mean? What does that translate to a Ugandan with all the debt that is being handled right now?
I think, to me, the key is efficiency. We need the electricity. It's
at what cost, Professor?
At a competitive cost. What does this mean? If Uganda is producing iron ore and Kenya is producing iron ore and we're exporting steel somewhere, the cost of producing steel in Uganda should match well with the cost of producing steel anywhere in the world. That is the cost of electricity. The other one is the cost of inefficiency within the country. This country is very inefficient. That's why you find interest rates at 20% instead of 13, 14%. There are many other things where we're inefficient, and this is something that we must manage. So electricity is part of that inefficiency. But we are saying they are key in driving productivity in the country. They are key in driving growth. So we must put emphasis on them being much more efficient so that they can deliver electricity to the consumer at a reasonable cost. That reasonable cost means being able to be competitive. If I'm going to produce something in this country for export, it should be able to match somebody else in Kenya, in Taiwan, or wherever it is. That is the cost of the unit of electricity. If they cannot do that, we shall never be able to produce for export.
My last question before I come to the Honorable Minister Bahati. If a kilowatt of power is 756 shillings, and it goes up to about, if they borrow, and it goes up to about 1,000, 2,000 shillings per kilowatt, when you look at that cost there, what does it mean in terms of the debt of the country? Especially that the last one they borrowed from commercial banks here.
Debt has no challenge. Incidentally, you leverage debt. You can leverage debt. I mean, when finance students will tell you there are times it's better to borrow than to use your own money. Okay? Now, if the country is borrowing to be able to produce a very necessary product like electricity, let it borrow. But they must be doing their figures to be able to tell us that when we produce 10,000 units and we have an output, this is how we will be able to pay it back. And by producing locally, enabling industry and others to produce, those others who are producing will be reducing will be making the loans affordable. The challenge with our loans, I mean, you've had, for instance, how much do we use to produce the expressway? Maybe, just for argument's sake, we borrowed $500 million to produce the expressway, but the cost should have been $250. That is a problem. So you pay much more than what you should have paid because it went into corruption.
Should Ugandans, if the cost of a kilowatt goes up, would government endear itself to put a subsidy in place? Would that be a mechanism to support cushion?
Subsidy should come in, for instance, Malawi, many years back, subsidized the cost of producing maize. And it brought down prices, it enabled the farmers to earn, and the World Bank told them, Malawi, stop it. And they stopped it, and they started importing maize again. When you look at the cost benefit, the subsidy in the long run would have paid off. Malawi continues to import maize today. Food insecurity. But I'm sure if this country plans the production of electricity efficiently, whatever the source of the money, and they sell it reasonably, we should not have a debt problem. It should be an ordinary debt problem like many organizations borrow money from banks. I mean, I sit on boards which have borrowed millions of dollars, and they are quite happy. They declare dividends, So debt should not worry you. Debt should only worry you if the money goes into corruption. Debt should worry you if the organization you are borrowing the money for fails to produce. Then it will accumulate interest and the cost of borrowing will be very high. But if you are able to produce as per plan, then it shouldn't worry you. Shouldn't worry.
Thank you. Honorable Bahati, one of the selling points that we mentioned is the 5 cents per kilowatt of industry, leveraging the region there. If we get to 52,000 with borrowed money, and that goes up, what does that mean for your docket as industry?
And that's what?
If we borrow money to get to the 52,000 megawatts, and the kilowatt goes up, what does that mean for the dream of industry in Uganda?
First, as the minister said, we are looking at 52 megawatts by 2040, meaning that we have 14 years that produce an extra 50,000 megawatts with a combination, a mixture of different. And you raised an issue that do we have the capacity to produce this, in this case it will be 3,700 megawatts if you get 52 divided by 14. But we don't have to be uniform. In some years you can produce more depending on the demand and also depending on the available resources. And just to make a comment on what my professor talked about, the efficiency of these institutions. We have boards on the top, like on top of UDCL we have a board, then we have a minister, you know, and we have an MD and management. So it's our expectation that the board will do the policy for this institution and run it as a separate institution. Government does not interfere, Prof. Like now we don't interfere in their affairs. We only intervene actually. And we intervene in a good way. We don't interfere, we intervene.
Someone could just say that is semantics. Different,
no,
different
it's not semantic. We interfere.
Globally, for public enterprises, the word is political interference. And that is usually appointment of this or the other.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
But the point I wanted to bring out, what I've seen in my experience, we must, and we are going to handle this, the issue of procurement in these institutions. You know, UDCL now is applying a procurement procedure like any other institution, but we expect it to work as a private company, but is following government regulations. Whether it is to advertise, you must advertise for 3 months, for pre-qualification for a number of months. So you find that one procurement is it takes 1 year. But somebody who is expecting a meter, when you pressed a call to complain about a transformer, if that procurement of a transformer is going to take 1 year, the clients will continue crying. So there is a need, and we have realized this, there is a need to have flexibility in the procurement for these, and of course guarding corruption. There is a need to have flexibility for these institutions that are private in a nature, working under government, if we are to have efficiency that we are looking for. 50% or 60% of inefficiencies is coming from procurement procedures, which we must address. We must run these companies as private companies to serve clients, to serve you, the customers. So that's one. As a professor said, I don't think that borrowing money to invest in the right priority is a problem. The problem comes when the execution is delayed. When you borrow money, I'll just give you an example of just on a selfish note. We got money for Lake Munyonyi, Kabale Lake Munyonyi, which is very crucial for tourism. We got it in Parliament 2018, signed in 2020. Procurement has been going on. We went, I think, took another 3 years. We went on the ground. Now the contractor has some challenges, which we are going probably to the Ministry of Works is working on to see whether we should continue with him or have something else. But you can see it's the delays. Now we are paying some charges out of that borrowed money. So it's a delay of execution that actually is a problem, because as we negotiate, when we are negotiating the implementation of these loans, we negotiate the terms. We are making sure that the interest rate is a reasonable interest rate. In some cases, we get concessional loans, 2%, 1%. Now with commercial loans, it goes around 5%, which is a reasonable rate that we can use to implement. So I don't think that the interest rate, the rate that we are using now, will actually affect the tariff. What will affect the tariff? Because if we are going to borrow for a project like for power, we factor in the cost of tariff. How will it affect? How will the interest rate affect the tariff? So that we always analyze. But the problem is the cost, the accumulation of this cost is brought about by execution of the implementation rate. If you take long to consume this loan, you know it's accumulating penalties. You bring the cost unbearable to the industries and to others. So this is really the major issue.
And I'm glad you used that example, because we talked about the MPG Express some time back, how the money jumped all the way to about 500 billion with design changes and all these things. It's been about 8 years for this to happen. These delays in implementation, how can they be, how can you as ministers, this is both to Honorable Kasai and Honorable Hati, how can you as ministers support UEDCL? Because you're asking them to deliver gold, yet they have one hand tied behind their hands, talking about PPDA, all these things. How can we shorten that process?
So what we are trying to do, and the minister can add on, is to amend the PPDA Act to be able to bring reforms that conform to the requirements of the day. Because as you said, if you delay, you borrow money this year, and the implementation starts 5 years later because of procurement, the design, the cost of money, the cost of materials has automatically changed because of inflation, because of so many things. You can imagine like now what is happening globally in the Middle East. You know, the cost of transporting things to come here, the raw materials, would affect the interest rate. So what we want to do now is to have, and we requested the Minister for Finance, who supervises the PPD Act, to look into, and I know that they are bringing up the reforms within the Public Procurement Act, so that we are able to have the necessary reforms into the law, but also to have the mindset, having the right people in the right place to take advantage of the opportunities around. And that's done through us as political supervision to appoint the right boards, and the right boards appointing the right management, so that we manage this. If we don't handle the issue of procurement, it's causing us a problem. The issue of management and human resource, yes, we can. If we find a problem, it is very easy to appoint and disappoint. In one day, if we find that there is an issue, like UDCL, I think the minister is here. He made some changes in one afternoon. I was meeting the ED in the morning, in the afternoon I was told that he changed. So, so that is very easy to make, you know. But the issue of these inherent processes that really delays in the processes that delay the execution is what we are working on now.
Thank you. Honorable Okasai.
Yes, additionally, for all infrastructure ministries, Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Roads, Ministry of Water, acquisition of leeways. The passage for the infrastructure takes a very long time and is very costly, and that's where there is a lot of corruption. And if we can ease acquisition of leeways for infrastructure ministries, that will reduce the cost greatly, besides procurement and inefficiencies of human nature. critical supervision instead of just sitting in the office. Whatever we are seeing now in Ministry of Roads is actually because of the supervision. And in Ministry of Energy, we have actually followed up the performance of our projects. That's why we're able to deliver the West Nile line, we're able to deliver the Kabale line, and we are following on all the infrastructures, supervising the delivery of those projects, setting the timelines for the delivery of the projects.
Thank you. Let me come to Dr. Walugembe, then Professor. Finally, I'll come to Isaac. Dr. Walugembe, we look at Uganda Airlines. We brought an expatriate, sent him away. Brought in a Ugandan, there were issues there. Now we have an expatriate who is there. There is a lot of change management that happens within this. But also when you look under the carpet, the issues are basically bureaucracy, like you were saying, red tape, but also procurement. This management question, can we as Ugandans solve it? Especially for entities that we desire to see taking us somewhere.
No, we need to build a managerial class that can run enterprises well. So that's the challenge that we have. Of course, certain industries require expert, like airlines. If Uganda is setting up Uganda Airlines, we've not had an airline, a functional airline. So inevitably, you need to get people from the outside. Of course, Ugandans will want that job because of the perks, but it's in order that you bring in such people so that over time we can mentor and handhold locals who will take over. You see, at the end of that day, you want a functional state enterprise, not so much that you want a Ugandan there. Is it delivering value? If it's delivering value, then it's fine. That's why I'm saying, even for you, EDCL, if the current managers are unable, because see, when you're local, you have a lot of friends and so on, so you can easily be, influenced and so on. For foreigners, sometimes they're insulated from such things. They've come to work, they're mercenaries, so they just do their job, they're paid, and then they leave. So for me, I think that for such, it's fine if we can bring in the right resource, so long as it's helping the entity as a whole to become more efficient and to provide value for Ugandans. So I'm entirely okay with that.
Thank you. Finally, before I get to Isaac, Professor Walnyua, the goal is to get to 13.7% energy loss. Before that, UEB was between 28 and 30. Came down by Umeme 19, about there. Today, they're at about 18.5%. They're looking at 13.7. In these next 5 years, is that possible? Especially look at the Kamilfus.
It is possible. It is possible. It is possible.
How?
When they set standards anywhere, they give you a leeway to do actual minus, plus or minus. Now, if you're inefficient, you in this situation, you get more losses. If you are not doing the right job, you get more losses. What UECDL needs to do is simply A, to find the right leadership, B, find the right management, C, ensure that the various tools of trade are in place, so that and the KPIs for different people. To me, there is no reason why you can't do well. But as a nation, we have a mindset challenge. If you go into the managerial cadres in this country, they'll tell you, for instance, look at the banking sector. They are foreigners as CEOs and managers. Look at the big enterprises in this country. Most of the managers there are not Ugandans. Not that we are incapable, but an attitude, and when we lose people, we go to Bari for 2-3 days. When there is a problem with the boss, we don't work for a couple of days. And all this breeds inefficiency. And inefficiency will lead to losses, definitely. So if we are going to compete at a global level, which to me we are capable of doing, we should be able to adapt good and highly productive business practices. And an institution like UCDL, which, I mean, it actually produces the simplest product. The problem with UCDL, which I hear, is infrastructure. The line, and they are old. And why can't they have a plan to have this done well? Why? They can do it. You know, so, Honourable Minister, you are here, this is your docket. There is no reason why those people cannot deliver electricity in this country efficiently. There is absolutely no reason why. Because it is not rocket science. Electricity was produced, it is there, we shall continue to produce it. These fellows just need to adjust their minds and be able to give us the best that they can. And I'm sure with this provision, those losses are going to reduce.
Thank you. Finally, Isaac, what would success look like for UDCL if Ugandans were to give you the benefit of doubt of 2 years?
Okay. Thank you, Timothy. One, the one common word that we've been hearing about efficiency, efficiency. And in the energy sector, efficiency is really measured on precisely three things. One, of the money that, one of all the power that is pumped into the system, how much of that is converted into a bill, meaning the energy losses, that you get the power that is from generation, transmission, and you make sure you bill it. That is number one on energy losses. To put it in context, currently at 18.5, we are losing 30 billion on a monthly basis. 30 billion. By just say reducing that by 10%, you definitely be looking at 36 billion in a year sorted. 36 billion in a bag by just reducing the losses by 10%. Two, collection of all that what you have billed. Can you actually convert it into cash? And that brings up to say, currently we are doing at 100%. All whatever is being billed is actually being converted into cash. I would say that is one thing we need to maintain. On losses, we are still on a back foot. We are saying that in the next 2 years, can we move this from 18.5 to at least 15%? Those will be 3.5 percentage points. Why you might not be at 13? It's because the biggest component of this 18.5, close to 12% of the 18, is actually technical losses. What we are talking about, planting in more bigger substations to reduce on the length of the distribution lines, issues to do with the route length. You find that technically you're not supposed to be having a 33 kV line running for over 300 kilometers. That already you'll have technical losses along the way. Up to look at the transformer distribution lines that are moving more than a kilometer, they're definitely contributing to technical losses. So we are basically looking at going from at least 18.5 to 15%. That, in simple terms, you will have a distribution efficiency of close to 85%. Best utilities, their distribution efficiency is around 90%, meaning they're only losing 10% of all the energy that is pumped into the system. The other one definitely is about service, the response, the way the customers rate us. Right now, when we carried out a survey, our net promoter score is negative 10%. We want to move that to a positive, at least 20% in the next 2 years. What is their feel and touch when they walk into our service points? And then lastly, reliability. We want to see that at least in the next 2 years, on average, each customer has outages of not more than 60 hours in a year. Literally, we're saying at least 2 hours, maximum 2 hours in a month for each and every customer we service. That's what success will look like.
For August, I think the switching off of power, you finished it today at my home. But then let me get some feedback.
No, we have actually had a transmission line that was working around that entire stretch from Namungona to Busega, and over the weekend it ended the 8 hours.
23 hours.
You are in the
So
next
you have
5
only
years.
1 hour.
Let me read some feedback that has come through here. Thank you for the program. Some people were valued, but they were not compensated. The lines are passing over them. They were not paid for the portion that is being occupied. This is Fatuma. That's a question I think we'll take note of. Honorable Minister, I hope you do. Moderator, why is it that the cost of connection is very high? Really, it costs a common man to access power is still under the private business, and yet under rural electrification, we had some understanding. A person is far from the pole and they need 3-4 poles to be able to get connected. But when you calculate the money it takes to have the capital to invest in a business, you rather invest in the business than put it in power. Okay. Sam in Lira says, there's always been a challenge which I have been seeing all day. When you want to install power, you apply, it takes long, 4 to 5 months without seeing any reaction from UEDCL. Isaac is taking note of those ones. Semakula here from Nakawa says, thank you for the show. Why is UEDCL's power rates charged according to dollar stability? Is that true?
That was Umeme.
Okay, interesting. Muhammad Ali from Busia says, talking about electricity in Busia, I think we are receiving power in shifts. 1 week we have it, the next week we don't. Also, we have most of the people in town don't have it. We use generators or we use solar panels. We have decided to find our own means to solve our loading problems. Okay. Timothy, here in Uganda, it is a disaster. Irregular supply, bribery of contractors. We used to install lines with very exploitative people. A secretary at the desk determines who receives the service or meets the manager. Syndicates of corruption, outage, one line every day, especially when it comes to the zones. Ministers, please help us. Finally. Good evening, Timothy. Thank you for the show. In Uganda particularly, power cannot be on for 24 hours without getting off. Traders are displaced and they start to find areas where we have to sell. This trade order should be removed so that we sell while there is broad daylight with no power on the streets, then we move back to our shops at night. Okay. This one is from Dokolo. Says, I know most of the issues are about power, but at least the power. Areas like Dokolo, we have no power at all. Please let us know. Are we supposed to be on the grid or we should wait for the next company? Interesting. We'll have parting shots. We'll start with Isaac, Dr. Walgembe, the Honorable Minister Kasai, Professor, and finally the Honorable Minister Bahati. Parting shots starting with you, Isaac.
Thank you, our listeners and viewers. And those are very good feedbacks. And one of the things why we are here is to pick that feedback. Indeed, as we continue holding each other accountable, we call upon your support. A lot of power is being lost. If you are losing 30 billion in power-related theft, that is something we really call upon that we support. We know at least 1 or 2 people. If you are really going to be looking at efficiency, please let us join the fight against power theft. You're not doing the entire country, the economy, any favor. The second one is really on vandalism. On average, we are losing 10 kilometers of our grid, of our network. So we use the word, a polite one, of vandalism, but it is real theft. You find someone cutting down a pole, taking copper wires, taking cables, and that alone now derails. For us, as we're looking at expanding the grid, we're now basically replacing the vandalized network. We call upon the communities out there really to support us. Vandalism is really real sabotage to the development of the economy. And lastly, we keep the communications lines open. We are here. I keep telling my customers that UEDCL is in a very tricky position, that we don't have any other product we deal in. Meaning, by the time you're seeing that this person who's selling a product cannot supply it, some of the situations are beyond them. It's very different when you have a shop where you have alternatives. If you don't sell a soda, you can sell bread. Here, we have no option. By the time you're seeing us, we're really constrained. Thank you.
Dr. Walgembe.
How can you complain for being a monopoly? It's the first time. You have a captive, clientele, they can't choose not to work with you, so just improve your efficiency. I think for Uganda and for SMEs, we want affordable and reliable electricity in order to create jobs, in order to contribute to the tax base, and in order to see Uganda grow into a tenfold growth, to grow the size of the economy by 10 times. For you, EDCL, I think you've picked valuable feedback. You go back and introspect and see what you can change. And of course, over time, as you make those changes, you start seeing positive feedback from your clients. And as a country, we want you to succeed because, that's the issue we have and want you to succeed. We can't look for another foreign entity to run this. So please do your best so that we become very proud of your achievements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister.
Isaac, thank you for your relevant questions, especially whether we can supply electricity to meet the tenfold development ambitions of the country. As a ministry, we are committed to providing that electricity either through internally generated the 52,000 megawatts, or we actually can import electricity. And for the general population, the questions which you raised are also relevant because at any point in this country, electricity is critical for development. Take electricity for education in a village, wherever there is electricity, we take electricity, the development of that area can be seen. Electricity contributes to development about 10% to the development. This is according to the studies which were done by Minister of Finance. It has got the highest impact on growth. It is the reason why everybody wants electricity. Questions have been raised. I must apologize to the people of Kumi. First of all, we want everybody to be connected to electricity by 2030 in this country. Today we are at about 62.5%. It's not a long time to reach 2030, but 2030 we want everybody in this country to be using electricity of one form, either grid or mini grids or solar energy. So everybody must be connected by 2030. If you were to read into that, currently it is about 24.5% that were connected to the grid. 38% is connected to other forms of energy, solar, rooftops. That makes it 62.5%. So we expect to reach that target of 100% by 2030. On the connections, this is a priority of government now. You only need to pay 23,600 shillings to be connected. If you are on one pole or no pole, you are actually connected for free. You only pay 23,600. But those who are beyond that, the cost of one pole is about 3,000, 2,700 if you are to connect beyond one pole. If you are going to meet,
millions.
Yes,
2.7 million.
2.7 million per pole. That one, UEDCL can actually enable you to do that. But the government is working through a rural electrification program to extend electricity to 90 meters to enable you get connected. So there are facilities for extension of electricity wires, extension outreach, and then there is the free connection to enable you. The meters have actually come for those people of Kumi. We have 100,000 meters now. The connections have started now. For those who have applied, this is the time to move to make sure that you get connected. Because what was hindering was unavailability of meters. But as we talk now, within the month of August to September, October, we have 100,000 meters which are going to be, which are out for grabs. So please go to UEDCL offices. If you are among the 500,000 applicants that are waiting for to be connected, this is the time, first come, first serve.
Okay.
So please go for the meters because they are available.
Thank you. Professor Balduino.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to, on the rural electrification, I know there's something happening. I don't know whether they've been able to notice it. Electricity was taken to Mayuge to one of the landing sites on a 3-phase, and then it comes back slowly. You know? Now, what have the people done? Because it's expensive to connect, they haven't connected it. So in Bugoto, where I have a farm, we have about 3-4 houses which are connected to electricity, but it's there. And they say it's too expensive. But when you go out in the evening, everybody has a solar lamp, solar light. Now, USCDL is losing money by those people having solar lights. So that's one thing. Two, I think we have identified the biggest problem in electricity supply here. It is the infrastructure, if I've heard well. People are saying it is old. This country needs to wake up and solve that problem for once. Can we replace this infrastructure? I don't know what it costs. I have not heard. But can you replace it in the next 1 year so that these outages can stop? Because if we don't do that, we shall continue. Everybody, you've heard the people complaining in Luero, in Busia. Everybody is complaining about power outage. And I think we've identified it correctly, that the problems are the infrastructure. Can you replace this infrastructure? Face it. Kampala produces, as he said, 60 to 70% of the revenue and the consumption. Let's fix it in Kampala first. Or let's go outside Kampala. You know? So I think that the development of this country largely depends on the availability of electricity. That's one. The rural electrification depends on the cost. So that is something that we should be able to also look at and say, somebody called it a subsidy. I don't want to call it a subsidy, but even us who are in urban areas, you have all your lighting and you are charging on electricity and you are cooking on gas. Why? Because you fear electricity is too expensive. So it is something to research into and find out what does it exactly mean for an urban area, somebody who is, I mean, other than people whose bills are paid without knowing, you know, they exist. They don't mind how much electricity they use. But I think it's important for UCDL and the ministry to conduct some research in these areas and be informed in their decision making.
Thank you. Finally, the Honorable Mr. Bahati.
Yeah, thank you. For any country to develop, you need industrialization because you need to create jobs. Industrialization creates jobs, generates revenue, and creates wealth for especially those who will be trading these products that have been manufactured and also exported. And for industrialization to move forward, as I told you, industrialization agenda in this country, the momentum is high. And for it to move forward, we need electricity. We need power to power the industrialization agenda. And generation is at the center. 1,900 to 2,000 megawatts is far below in the next 5 years with the requirement of industry. And that's why as government, we are doing all it can to make sure that we invest more money in the in the generation of electricity and also distribution. I think this talk show has also given us as feedback, as government, has given us feedback on how we should address the inefficiencies of UDCL. I'm sure that the Minister of Energy will take up this matter and make sure that the inefficiencies are addressed. The mindset of the civil service, I was a civil servant before, you know, to be consumed in procedures rather than outputs must change. We must know the output service delivery to our people. And I think as government, it's an important talk show that we have attended. We'll be able to go back and work together because we are working as a team, supporting one another to improve the efficiency of UDCL so that we deliver efficient service to our people and also make sure that we invest more resources in the sector.
Thank you. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming through to discuss such a patent issue, and specifically the Honorable Minister Bahati. I know you were not feeling well, but you still came through to be here with us. Isaac, for whatever canes you've received, I hope you pass on our gratitude that it was just feedback that was coming from the people. I want to thank the production team for making today possible and being able to make sure that we are live, but also you who has watched us for this hour and sent a message through. Thank you very much. We'll end with this quote. Do not look where you failed, but where you slipped. Good morning.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
The government's core mandate is to maintain law and order, safeguard citizens' rights, and provide essential public services.
Remember, one of the pillars of a roadmap is innovation and entrepreneurship.
There has been this question of how are you protecting our indigenous seed?
It's going to be a tall project that answers somebody's question.
The Front Bench has brought you insightful discussions on governance, security, healthcare, justice, and commerce.
Why do you go through this complicated procedure, involve the lawyers? You bring the case against him, the judge will hear you out and pass judgment, and you're out of court in record time.
We remain committed to keeping you informed and engaged on key national matters.
So these are huge, these are powerful organizations which now Uganda chairs. Why don't you come together?
If we haven't migrated to the e-card because of various reasons, including that not all the people of Uganda have smartphones.
You can sit in your house, apply for a passport.
If you have a Ugandan who has a successful logistics firm in the US, it means he can come to Uganda and do a lot more.
Every Monday at 8:30 p.m. with me, Jethro Kasaiji, your interface with the government only on your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archive stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
The Pacific Fleet, within its area of responsibility, is fully capable of carrying out the tasks assigned to it, and these tasks are becoming increasingly significant, particularly in light of the evolving situation in the region. We see that, unfortunately, there is a potential for conflict here. NATO is seeping into the region. New military political blocs are being formed. New weapons systems are being deployed and are planned for deployment here, which pose threats to our country as well. Incidentally, tensions are also observed in the neighbouring Arctic zone regarding the use of the Northern Sea Route.
Speaking from the flagship of Russia's Pacific Fleet, in the middle of the country's largest naval drills in the region this year, Putin is sending a clear message. Moscow is paying increasingly close attention to what is happening on its